Remember when Pikachu refused to use the Thunderstone to evolve? In the end, it turns out the tricks he learnt by not evolving were the exact tricks Pikachu needed to defeat Raichu. This is going to be the same for the Gods Knights, and here's why. Hey guys, it's Denden. Today's video is pretty dense, so as usual I'll give a brief summary of the idea and then we can get into the deeper spice. In Elbaf, Holy Knights were introduced and they stand out mainly because of their ability to regenerate, like the Gorosei, making them particularly difficult to overcome. Scopper told us their haki was abnormal in chapter 1145, and notably they know about Emu and don't wear the helmets we see on celestial dragons, implying they have some sort of deeper connection to the hidden truths of the world. So far, all we know for sure is it's highly likely Emu can put an end to them at any time, just like we saw with Saturn. Additionally, Sakazuki said the group causes problems for the Marines when they get involved, so maybe we'll see some infighting as well. But how will the Straw Hats defeat a Holy Knight? Well, it seems that throughout the story the reader has been shown the exact process that needs to be undertaken to become a Holy Knight, and potentially even a Gorosei member. By understanding this, we can essentially highlight their weaknesses. Not only that, but when we look at the members of the Revolutionary Army, we start to get a pretty wild idea about how this all matches up. In chapter 1083, Dragon hints that the Revolutionary Army's final fight will be with the Gods Knights. Putting together both aspects, we discover that some abilities like Fishman Karate have been foreshadowed to defeat Gods Knights for good. So without further ado, make sure you're subbed and let's get cooking. Okay, diving straight in. What has Oda told us about becoming a Holy Knight? Looking at another secret faction of the One Piece world, Cypherpol, we can work out everything we need to know. First, Cypherpol agents probably start as children. This has been alluded to in Carmel's B-plot, where she sells young orphans to the world government, in particular to Cypherpol. This is all but confirmed by the cover page for 519 during the Cypherpol cover story, which shows children training. Each of these children look like other world government agents, echoing what we've seen before from Cypherpol relatives such as Kumadori's mum, who was an assassin, or Spandam. This suggests that the world government also sourced children from their own families, something that will tie in later as we see a lot of lore around families of Gods Knights introduced. What I'm referring to there is like their clan names, right? Like so Myanmar, that was focused on. From here, the recruited children are taught the six powers, aka Roku Shiki. Lucci says, "We are far beyond ordinary humans. Those of us in Cypherpol 9 have been training for as long as we can remember. We owned our skills to serve the world government and overcome the limits of a human body. We gained 6 superhuman fighting skills through that training, telling us that the 6 powers are gained through training over a long time. Also, we can see this training has kind of dissociated Lucci with humans. He believes he is superhuman or non-human. Nero is told by Lucci that without these powers, a person is just an ordinary human, after which he unalives Nero, showing us what happens to agents that don't complete this level of training. However, if the child succeeds, then they are given a devil fruit, foreshadowed by the world government forcing Boa and her sisters to eat zone fruits. The awakened zone prison guards of Impel Down contrast this, so we can see what happens if a Cypherpol agent doesn't succeed in this part of their training. Despite it not being acknowledged in the community much, we can see this is clearly the case when we match the prison guards to Carmel's orphans. If the candidate has gotten this far, it's likely they would be accepted into Cypherpol 9, the second to highest rank within the faction. The next rank up would be Cypherpol 0. We didn't get much chance to see what they were capable of, but what we do see is Lucci and Kaku both have awakenings after their promotion. This tells us that the highest level Cypherpol agents are given awakenings. Around the same time, we were introduced to the Holy Knights, implying they are the next rank up. We quickly learn that these characters have regeneration abilities and are almost unkillable. Lucci was shown last minute to side with the world government and return with Kaku to their forces on the ship, so this hints that Lucci might become a Holy Knight. Something that sticks out here is that Lucci has rebelled orders on multiple occasions before. The Holy Knights were explicitly shown to not have control over how they teleported to Elbaf, highlighted by Summers, who was not dressed appropriately when he arrives. So there could be a contrast later on around Emu's control over Lucci. Either way, it appears that if you have a devil fruit, are awakened, and have trained for long enough, then you get a chance to become a holy knight. Garling was the captain of the God's Knights, and he became a Gorosei member, showing us how you can complete the line all the way up to the top of the world government's forces. What's important here is that this particular range of techniques is mirrored by other abilities we've seen in the story. The big difference, however, is that these skills are scattered across the world, tucked away in rural locations. For example, one of the 6 abilities taught to Cypherpole agents is called Life Return. Life Return is the name of a technique explained to us by Kumadori to mean the complete control of one's own body. Kumadori uses this to control even his hair, which he fashions into sharp weapons. Chopper states he's heard of a similar ability to Life Return named Biofeedback. So, Oda is showing us that you can do the same technique without the Cypherpole training. The same idea is echoed when Lucci changes his zone forms using Life Return, something Chopper initially achieved through Rumble Balls and later can perform without any medicine at all. So, Life Return is a technique taught to Cypherpole members through rigorous training and cold nurturing, but can be achieved outside the world government too. There's a subtle hint towards this that Oda included with Black Maria because she was a zone user that needed something akin to Rumble Balls to change her zone form. So perhaps this is because she hadn't had Cypherpole's Life Return training and hasn't developed her abilities through the same growth as Chopper, which we know because she was forced to eat her devil fruit by Kaido. Another ability we see Cypherpole agents use is Absorption. Cypherpole members can quickly metabolize food, shown physically when a character blows up like a balloon and then suddenly shrinks. Without the Cypherpole training, however, Luffy, Bonnie, Loki, and Kid have all been shown to do the same. If we go through the other powers, lo and behold, we discover they each have ties to a power from the outside world. So, there are powers around the world that reflect the training Cypherpole agents receive. But what does this have to do with defeating a God's Knight? Well, because if it's true, then like I mentioned with the Pikachu analogy, the God's Knights have likely had very sheltered, world government-based experiences and training. This might mean they haven't been exposed to the outside world so much, and so haven't learned as many techniques, let's say. If thematically culture beats the world government, then it will be manifested in these cultural-based moves being used, such as Fishman Karate. Oda has shown this over and over again already in the story. A simple example to start with is with Zoro. Zoro defeats Kaku with swordplay. A young Zoro tells us that, when mastered, the Shimotsuki 2 sword style can cut through anything. Thematically, we see Zoro wins because of the reason he fights, which comes from his childhood, in contrast to Kaku's motivations, which is to serve the world government. So, through a certain childhood, Zoro gained a certain skill set and certain mindset to overcome a Cypherpole agent. This is what we mean when we say culture beats the world government. In the same arc, we see Spandam, whose plans get thrown off by Frankie. By overcoming his childhood trauma and finding his way into Water 7, he becomes Nakama with the Straw Hats, which gives him the strength to burn the blueprints to Pluton and avoid capture from the world government. Furthermore, Frankie's backstory is shown during the arc, revealing Frankie's development and natural skill in technology. So again, through a certain skill set developed as a child and a certain mindset developed as a child, Frankie is able to overcome a Cypherpole agent. Finally, around this time, Luffy defeats Lucci using Gear Second and saying he'd rather die than give up on his Nakama, echoing the exact same premise. So, in summary, because of the God's Knights training, they are bound to a limited skill set and a limited mindset. But how does Oda manifest this in the story? Well, a Twitter user called Straw Hat UFO made a brilliant post where he theorizes that chapter 1146 revealed some very spicy hints. In the chapter, Nami says, "How could you let this happen, Jinbei? I thought we'd be okay with you here." After this, Jinbei replies, saying, "Stop talking. I'm trying to think of how we're going to handle this ability." So Oda is foreshadowing here that Jinbei will eventually try some method, which will likely affect the God's Knights. So does Jinbei have a particular skill set and mindset he developed as a child? Well, yes, Fishman Karate is an art practiced primarily by members of the Fishman race, and was learned by Jinbei. It's a technique that controls water. Also in the same chapter we found out about the regeneration abilities of Gunko. What's interesting is this scene references chapter 629, the chapter where we first learn about Fishman Karate, which you can see when you put the panels side by side. So it's hard to notice at first, but when you look deeper you can see it's clearly intentional that these have been drawn the same way. The technique was learned by Robin from the Revolutionary Army. We also know that the Revolutionary Army has Fishman karate practitioners such as Koala and Hack. Aside from the Revolutionary Army, there's another individual who fought against the might of Marie-Joie and lived to tell the tale, which is Captain of the Sun Pirates, Fisher Tiger. We could speculate that Fisher Tiger faced off against one or more of the God's Knights who guard the Holy Land. The original Twitter post suggests he survived not just based on his strength, but also based on Fishman karate. So we know Jinbei has the special skill set, and in terms of mindset, he joined Luffy's crew, as opposed to Arlong, another Sun Pirate that instead chose to tax the weak and perpetuate the Celestial Dragon's evil ways. So our first prediction here is that Fishman karate will be used by a Revolutionary Army member to defeat a Holy Knight. This might be because Fishman karate is a technique developed outside of the world government's standard reach, which we see other examples for with different powers, and we'll go through them. In the same Twitter post, OP goes on to speculate about other abilities associated with the Revolutionary Army, such as Dragon Claw Fist. This is a technique with one known practitioner, Sabo, the Flame Emperor, and second in command of the Rev Army. He actually offered to teach the ability to Robin, so if this all works out, then Robin is looking primed to be a Holy Knight's worst nightmare, which may have been foreshadowed in a few colour spreads. A young Zoro tells the reader that mastering the Shimotsuki two-sword style can cut through anything, and while they have never been explicitly stated to have joined the Rev Army, Dragon did visit the island just over a decade ago. Later, however, the relationship is confirmed when we see the hidden city of Baltigo, and the Shimotsuki flag is among the factions shown on the banners. That said, these powers are not exclusive to Revolutionary Army members. Oda uses the Colosseum in Dressrosa to highlight these types of powers, for example with Don Chinjao, when he demonstrates Hashoken, which is a very similar looking ability to Life Return, one of the Cypher Pulse 6 powers. According to Gats, this fighting style allows the user to control the vibrations of the whole body, permitting them to create powerful shockwaves. These shockwaves are powerful enough to destroy a metal shield or easily defeat a strong character. These attacks are unblockable and reverberating, causing defenses to shatter, according to Sai. The significance is that the technique is a secret family technique spread over generations, so likely taught to the children of the family. Lao Ji is a master of a martial arts style known as the Jio-Ken. These techniques all revolve around his elderly state, and the ultimate technique of this style is to use Qi Gong, the principle of cultivating and balancing one's own spiritual energy, to conserve his physical vitality from back during his youth, which he can store up until he needs it, granting him access to immense strength once unleashed. It's implied that the user gets stronger the older they are, which contrasts the agelessness of the God's Knights, confirmed in 1155 when we saw Gunko look the same age decades ago. Both of these powers are seen amongst a load of other similar abilities used in the Colosseum mini-arc, and both show how there is a powerful technique in the world native to rural regions that aren't under the world government. These are the types of esoteric techniques that will be effective against the God's Knights. Perhaps the most critical example is the strength of the Giants of Elbaf, foreshadowed by Gunko, Harold and others to be the strength that will win the final war. Shamrock offered to recruit Loki, which is evidence towards this, so we can see the combat strength of rural communities seems to be particularly powerful again. We look at the Straw Hat crew to find abilities, considering the Straw Hats must also have some way of combating the God's Knights, and using the same criteria we get an idea of who their opponents might be. I'll give an example. When the Straw Hats finally managed to land their first effective attack on a Gorosei member, it was Sanji using a love kick against Nuzjuro. It worked, not only preventing Nuzjuro from harming Bonnie by kicking him away, but it also hurt him. Now, we know it's not just love that's hurting the Gorosei, otherwise Senor Pink would be one-shot in every God's Knight in the verse. Instead, what ability did Sanji learn that's native to an island not under the world government, and can also be performed by a Revolutionary Army member? Akama Kenpo. Akama Kenpo is described by Ivankov as the ultimate form of fighting. It's a technique native to Kamabaka Kingdom, another location out of reach of the world government, and Eva, a commander in the Rev Army, can also use the technique. Bon Clay expresses that being an Okama is part of the way of the human, and God's Knights have already shown their disdain for humanity. For example, Gunko says, "How dare you call me human" in chapter 1146. Sanji also learned his spin kicks from the spinning wheels in Onesi's Noodle Kenpo, so Sanji does seem to have some abilities native to cultures, and his childhood gave him the mindset to join the Straw Hats. Additionally, Sanji is shown to not fight women, embodied by his conflict with Black Maria. So if we had to make a prediction here, we could say that Sanji will use Okama Kenpo to overcome his inability to fight a woman, and in doing so the technique will be effective and will defeat the God's Knight. Maybe it's a reach, but we can go deeper and argue there's a case for why Sanji was paired up with Nozdro in the first place. Where is Nozdro from? Probably Wano, right? So in Wano we saw plenty of Okama, and its Japanese roots are the reason for the O at the start of the word Okama. Think Okiku. So there is a connection between Okama and the land of Wano, which is perhaps why Oda chose Sanji as the one to kick Nozdro, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Usopp learned pot greens from a mysterious figure at the Boyne Archipelago. Nami is equipped with lightning strikes, seemingly tied to the fairly isolated culture of Wavaria. Brook has music which has been shown to manipulate the soul, Chopper has medicine that can reverse the effects of ice zombies, amongst other things, and his impressive skills as a doctor came from the rural region of Drum Island. Zoro has the Shimotsuki sword style, Frankie has impressive technology, and Jinbei has Fishman karate, all of which were developed as children in rural communities. Earlier we noted Robin was offered to train in some esoteric techniques, and there's some foreshadowing in cover pages that Robin might go on to command part of the Rev Army or Grand Fleet herself. These unique traits are likely the key to overcoming the main antagonists of the Elbaf arc so far, and likely culminate in some special technique that will be used to defeat Emu. So let's put this into practice by predicting some matchups for the Straw Hats. We start with Somers Shepherd. Somers was introduced in his underwear. Now, is there a Straw Hat that is often seen in his underwear? Well, yes, Frankie. Frankie is from the South Blue, a location we only ever see being really sunny or summery. This is highlighted by the palm trees we see every time the South Blue is shown. Frankie's shirt is covered in palm trees, for example, so it adds to this. Somers is German for the word summer, evoking hot weather just like the South Blue, and his sunglasses add to the idea. The surname Shepherd is a typical biblical reference, and for those who haven't noticed, the South Blue is explicitly shown to be influenced by the Bible, such as with the church, Kuma and his dad both being pastors, and the saintbris having a biblical title in its name. The small crucifix in Somers' beard plays into this. Finally, Somers turns his right arm and sword into a more powerful weapon using his fruit, evoking serious Frankie vibes in the panel. As a quick aside, Frankie's number is 39, and Somers was introduced in 1140, perhaps suggesting that Somers' number is 40, one above Frankie, which is a common trope in One Piece with rivals. So it goes without saying, Frankie is pretty connected to Somers, and Frankie's skill is advanced technology, so we can predict that Somers will take on Frankie at some point, and his technology will play a role. Perhaps Somers' thorn fruit is ineffective against Frankie's metal body in some ways. But if I had to guess, I'd say the fight will probably reveal lore about Frankie's family having a rival clan in the South Blue, which will be the Shepherd clan. The next Holy Knight is Killingham. Killingham is a fishman, which we know for sure because of his gills. Killingham's introduced with a bubble hinting towards his need for certain air in certain environments, evoking a mix of fishman and celestial dragon. His eyes and mouth resemble Charlie and Praline, both of whom are sharks. Personally, I find this interesting because it means this Holy Knight is a shark. Emu has recently been hinted at by Oda alongside the picture of a shark as well as Brook's shark guitar. It gets spicier when we think that Arlong was a shark from the Sun Pirates who left the crew and taxed humans, perpetuating the world government's way of doing things. It's likely this is a reference to two opposing factions again, the mermaids versus the sharks, echoing the whole world government versus ancient kingdom vibe. Naturally, this tells us Jinbei would be the man for the job. He's connected to whale sharks, a peaceful animal whilst also being the biggest shark, contrasting Arlong. Jinbei wants to achieve Fisher Tiger's dream of equality between fishmen and humans, whereas Killingham, being a celestial fishman, goes completely against that perfectly. I think we could see Jinbei use Fishman Karate to defeat him, perhaps using water to overcome Killingham and putting a twist on the weakness of devil fruits and the fact that Killingham's a fishman. This would make use of Jinbei's backstory as a sun pirate and a trait that's unique to his race. Gunko seems to play a larger role, which is much harder to predict, but we'll break down what we've seen so far. Unlike the other God's Knights, Gunko seems like more of a conduit for Emu. We can infer this because she uses arrows we've seen Emu use before. She's the girl from the throne room over 200 chapters ago, and she's literally used as a conduit at one point for Emu to take possession. We can see this demonstrated in the majority of her quotes, where she demeans humanity whilst referencing Emu as a divine god. Okay, so which Straw Hat really represents humans, repeatedly references how humans are weak and fragile, yet seems to supernaturally survive anything thrown his way. It's Usopp. His pop greens embody this, as they are shown to be plants that take human forms, such as the human mandrake. If Usopp somehow managed to defeat Gunko, then that would fit nicely with him becoming the warrior hero of Elbaf. And before you ask, yes, I've heard the theory Zoro might fight Gunko because he doesn't do well with directions, but thank you anyway. This leaves us with Shamrock, easily the hardest character to predict on a shallow level, with theories already flying around about his true identity and hidden lore. Rather than go into the sham sandwich, I'm going to just say Cerberus is a three-headed dog associated with hell and death, and Zoro has the three sword style and is associated with hell and death. I'll let you guys do the rest in the comments. Let me know if you think Shamrock will be an ally, enemy. Will he fight Blackbeard, Shanks, Garling? Yeah, just let me know. Anyway, since the earliest days of One Piece, could Oda have been creating the perfect team to fight the Gods Knights? I'm predicting the abilities we've talked about will take Imu's forces by surprise, as Imu isn't aware they even exist, let alone their capacity or their capabilities, making use of some sort of blind spot the world government has. This is because these particular abilities were developed outside the reach of the world government, and so have adapted and survived for generations. Sabo, the chief of staff and second in command, is a master of the Ryo Soken martial art. Ivankov uses Akama Kenpo with unique abilities like the powerful Deathwing. Lindbergh, the commander of the South Army, uses a freeze ray gun and other advanced technology which we speculated earlier could damage a God's Knight. Bello Betty, commander of the East Army, uses the Kobu Kobu Nomi, a fruit that rallies and empowers people around her, significantly increasing their physical strength and morale, which could mirror how Imu uses the Abyss. It can't just be coincidence these guys all have unique abilities and are still yet to be shown in the story. So I hope we can agree on at least a couple things, but let me know if you think I missed anything or if I sounded like I ate the yap yap fruit, as one commenter put it. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure you're subbed. Check out the Mega Theory on Emu. And we have another Mega Theory coming up soon called The Theory of Everything. If you've made it this far, you've just won a meal for one at the Baratier, but only if you can guess what number I'm thinking of, 11. Anywho, much love, teching out.